So welcome back everybody again. Today I'm here joined by James Dixon of Down Under Tours in Cairns. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Simon. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it is good. We were just off air just now talking about I think it's hard to avoid talking about the situation with travel. Your part of the world's particularly badly affected at the moment, so we're all obviously thinking about you guys. A bit
Thank
isolated
you.
up there at the far end of the country in such a beautiful place.
Yeah, my word, it's a very strange situation to be in, but you're 100% correct. Cairns may as well be on an island when it comes to tourists. We rely so heavily on aviation, and without it, regardless to what happens intrastate, I think we've got a long road back until we can at least open our intrastate borders. So we're really looking forward to that happening, and hopefully some sort of normality down the track.
Well, I think the so what we'll do is we're gonna go back in time and have a chat and think about where you've come from the last 30 years, which may feel like you're back there from
I
time
was
to
going to
time
say
at the
I wouldn't
moment.
mind being back there. So,
So you started, yes, about 30 years ago in Cairns. What was it like in the early days as an operator starting in a place like Cairns 30 years ago?
interesting question. And I need to make it very clear too, Simon. It was with my brother and his wife Helen and my wife Jan. So it was a family organisation, not just myself. But no, look, it was interesting. It's like any new business. 30 odd years ago, we were a lot younger, certainly not wiser. And I guess some of the things we did back in the early days, we were probably a little bit more brawn than brains. We saw opportunities and we ran at them. But no, back then the industry certainly a very different industry to what we have now. But it was more about just looking at opportunity and seeing the opportunity and grabbing it. I mean, we initially only started off with two vehicles, and it was actually a contract with Great Adventures carrying people around. So we didn't really even have a day touring program as such back then. So our first focus was Coranda. We knew that was I guess, a relatively easy market. And then we ventured from there to the Daintree, and then later on into Cape Trib. But yeah, it was an interesting time to say the least.
And we're here talking about to members of Ecotourism Australia, and you were one of the first companies to adopt that in its infancy. That was about 20 years ago. So, what what did it mean back then? What was the driving force behind it then, and how have things changed over the intervening years?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the reason that, we got right behind Ecotourism Australia was, quite simply, you look at our wet tropics and the region that we operate in. It is one of the most biodiverse natural environments on the planet, recognised by David Attenborough as such. And even back then, the drive to make sure that we preserve that, presented it in the best way that we could, was our main reason for getting behind Ecotourism Australia and becoming accredited. Anything we could do to better our operation and to deliver a better product had to be a good thing, not just for us, but for our guests and for the environment. So I guess that was the driving force. Probably what has changed over time is, now we have such a far greater focus on our environment, and travel. I know for us, and it's about making travel matter. It's about people. I suppose we've always seen ourselves as custodians of the rainforest, and we've seen our operation as an opportunity to take people into a region and to educate them, not just to go and show them the beautiful sights, but to educate them on the places that they're going to visit, whether that be the planet itself, the people, the culture, or the wildlife. But hopefully when they leave, not only they go away realizing what an amazing place it is, but they're also better educated and have a better understanding. And hopefully that in itself helps them maybe even change their own ways. But yeah, there's a lot behind it. And I think it has only grown over the years to, I think anybody who's working in this environment needs to be on board.
It's interesting, isn't it? The the tourism sector, when you start to scratch the surface, perhaps adopted a lot of the business practices for sustainability that we now perhaps take for granted. Would have adopted those a lot earlier than many other industries would have. Do you have a sense of why that is, and also have you got an example of one or two things that you were doing with Ecotourism Australia, say 20 years back, that have now become more commonplace?
Yeah, I suppose when you think about it, a lot of people think about sustainability, and it can be viewed in so many different ways. For us, our focus has always been about the operation itself and making sure that our footprint can be as minimal as possible. Um, Even back in the early days of making sure little things that don't sound like much, but making sure that you had the right facilities within the depot that you operated, i.e., all water was caught and put through separators, etc., to make sure that when you washed the vehicle that it didn't just run into the gutter. That you put it through the right means so that it was processed and went through sewage, making sure all of everything inside the depot was caught the same way, and that you had oil separators catching any spillage, whatever. We did that 20 odd years ago. And there's unfortunately you still see practices where that doesn't happen, and you question why. But they were some of the early adopted things that we just took on and didn't even think twice about it. That you had to do the right thing from an environmental perspective. There certainly is becoming commonplace everywhere now. You can't build a facility regardless to what it is without that. But even I suppose our paper output. We addressed that many years ago, trying to make sure that we would go to a paperless office, and our technology allowed us to do that. So a lot of different means like that, Simon, is some brief examples, but there's a lot more that goes with that as well.
We'll talk a little bit about what you actually do. I mean, you're because you're one of the bigger companies that we've talked to. And you run a fleet of buses. I think you said something like 90,000 people you move across the region on a normal year.
Correct.
And that would bring significant challenges way above what an alternative sort of smaller owner operator would have to face. Same challenges, just bigger challenges. So you're on a phase of continual improvement, as you've indicated. Emissions is a big part of this now, and again that would have been something you adopted quite early. But I think that brings far greater challenges in many ways than people imagine. What are the kind of things that you have to consider? The breadth of things you have to consider when putting these tours together, if you want to try and sort of say move towards a zero carbon emissions practice.
Yeah, it's a great question. We've worked on numerous things, and there is a lot of things that goes behind an operation even of our size, but a lot of things you can do that you can do for good. All of our vehicles have mixed telematics fitted to them. Mixed telematics actually measures our carbon output. So it measures it kilogram per square metre. So we can tell what our emissions is, and part of that system is also, it's not just measuring our carbon output, but it also measures the driver, harsh braking, harsh acceleration, a myriad of different things, so that we're actually helping control the way our vehicles are driven. Therefore, our fuel economy, our repairs and maintenance, all those things. It's amazing over the years since we've introduced it how that has just simply come down. It's in some ways, yes, it's a bit of a big brother, but it's there for a very good reason. But those challenges are expensive to implement, but in the long run, it comes back to you in spades. It's a better experience for the people. The fact that the people on board, the fact that we can monitor the driver, whether he does harsh braking or harsh acceleration, you can train people, and it's a wonderful training tool to be able to, our drivers, they know, and gives a smoother ride, a better ride, whilst returning less fuel consumption or less R&M, the whole bit. But that goes through the whole fleet too, Simon, in making sure that we use the correct air conditioning gas that's not in every vehicle. 407C, it virtually has zero impact from an environmental perspective if there was to be a leak. And it just goes on and on. Our oils, our tyres, we pay to have tyres recycled. We pay to have oil caught and recycled. So there's a lot of challenges that come at a cost, but it's also a responsibility. We see it as our responsibility as an operator to make sure that we do that.
We touched on this in another interview I did the other day, how it's possible that in some cases, by going on tours with the right operator, we could have less impact environmentally on a day out than we would if we actually went ourselves. And you've raised an interesting point there. If we just go out and drive more sensibly on our own roads in our own vehicles, not only can we save ourselves a significant amount of fuel burning per year, that we can potentially spend on more interesting and exciting things to do. It's also safer. Yep. And that culture, as you say, will extend through your business to your other drivers, and presumably some of that rubs off on your customers as well.
You'd like to think so. Absolutely. It's maybe if you do it correctly, it probably goes unnoticed because it's just a case of people getting on and enjoying themselves immensely without having to look down the aisle to see what the driver's doing or to be tossed around in their seat. They just have a carefree day, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But yeah, look, without a doubt. And I mean, one thing I didn't mention is that it's interesting, Simon, when you look at battery operated vehicles, or even looking at fuel cell technology. Because of all the things we have implemented over the years in our current fleet, we've looked at all of those things as a way forward. The reality is the tipping point at the moment, it's not just there yet. The technology is not quite good enough from a bus vehicle perspective to want for us to go to that next step. We know the technology will go there, but at the moment, when you weigh up everything that we're doing, it's virtually on an even par with what's available at the moment from that type of technology.
Yeah, and that's something that obviously all the operators are looking at very closely, and we've certainly spoken to a few others on that basis. Look, I think that as a final question, I do want to just play a little bit more video while we chat, because it's just an excuse to show people the beauty of the Daintree, which is
sure,
and those regions, which is just amazing. And this is Kuranda, of course, which, if anyone hasn't been there, is only just up the road from Cairns. So you've been there 30 years. So what are your hopes for the future? I'd imagine you'd like to have another 30 years. I'm not sure if you've got
I'd absolutely love to have another 30 years. But no, look, Simon, really, it's about making sure that we continue to be innovative with our product, creating new product. For us, it's as I mentioned or touched on earlier, it's the desire to be able to take people into a destination and educate them. It's not just, as I said, not just about seeing great sights, but it's about that education process and having people go away understanding the incredible environment that we have. This wet tropics area up here is one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet. It only covers 0.2% of the landmass of Australia. But yet it has some of the biodiversity of the region is just incredible. And that's not even touching on the reef. That's just touching on our rainforest. And, we really do want people to be going away understanding what an incredible place it is we live and what a privilege it is. But to make travel matter and go away and make what we do a little bit differently. And probably in some ways, the Corona 19 has done that a little bit. It's made us step back a little bit and have a look at ourselves and say, well, what is it that we need to do and how do we need to do it differently? And probably more importantly, what can we do without?
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's hope for let's hope for a chance to open up again, and perhaps, as you say, when people get a chance to travel, they can travel a bit more slowly, maybe, with and make a few more discerning choices about who they go with and where they visit. James, it's been a real pleasure to talk. Thank you very much for your time. We'll leave it there. I'll obviously encourage anyone watching to jump onto Ecotourism Australia's website and check them out. Wildiaries too, and Down Under Tours. We're all on everything, the socials, as my kids put it, Facebook,
That's
Instagram,
it.
the works. Okay,
No
all
worries.
right. You have a lovely afternoon and good luck.
Thanks, Simon. Good to be with you.